here's the big news, I guess, throughout the week. And it's not even news. It's just like a rumor.
Topical discussion.
As far as it's a rumor, but the rumor is Overwatch may be getting hero bans? ? Yiska?
I don't know.
Dude, you're a juice guy.
I will say that this was a possibility, and okay, so let's say this. You guys know that I hinted at something at some time, said like, okay, this might be happening. That is only because I heard it from multiple people. Maybe that was after BlizzCon. Maybe they just talked to the same person, and after that, I never heard anything more, and it never was substantiated to me at all. It was only ever a rumor, but usually when that rumor occurs, you soon hear of it in the usual circles. And therefore, yeah, I definitely have no new knowledge on that. I was actually very surprised that I think Metro Overwatch came forth with that speculation. I don't know if that is actually the thing that Imon referred to, but we'll see.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot on, what is it, Team 4 or whatever development team, and Blizzard has control and is working on Overwatch. They have a lot that they consider, with obviously 3-2-1 and the multiple different iterations of roll-lock that they've claimed that they've tested. Seems like there's a lot of open possibilities laid out on the table, so it's definitely possible, it sounds like.
So do we know any details about the ban system at all, or is this like more just like, hey, hero bans kind of? Does it mean we don't know if it's 1 ban, 3 ban, based on role, based on we don't know.
That matters more than the fact that hero bans are coming.
Yeah.
The iteration of how hero bans look like, just as hypothetical, right?
Yep.
So let's say you introduce hero bans in OWL, and you first have to declare the players, and your brother sits down at the PC and London Spitfire goes, Doomfist banned. He's like, well, I guess that's
I've been had, boys.
So, of course, very open. There's so much you could do.
Yeah.
With blocks, with like, when do you ban? Do bans like get taken back, or do they build up over a series?
The map or per series. Do your bans affect their bans? Like, do you ban a hero that they pick, but you can still pick it? Or
exactly, stuff like this, right? Like, so much
about the implementation.
The implementation is way more important than the fact of hero ban.
Right, just like each team picks one, obviously isn't going to do. Yeah, I mean, I guess it might do something.
I mean, it definitely does something.
Yeah. I think if they even do it where each team bans 1 hero, that would still be the single biggest change to Overwatch we've had. More than like 2-2-2 and Northern.
No hero limit?
Yeah, I think so. At least the way we practice it would change like absolutely everything.
Sure.
The thing with like 2-2-2 luck is all it did was change the meta. It didn't inherently change the way we practice as a team. It just changed the heroes that people picked, and the way the game was the same, where they just one comp over and over and over. It just changed what comp it was. But the concept of like 1 hero gets removed per map, then all of a sudden we have to practice every single map with different, how do we play this map without Orisa? How do we play it without Sigma? How do we play it without blah, 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 blah. So it would, like, every team would need to have the ability to think on the fly and have like pretty strong in-game leadership to be able to survive in a hero ban world.
I also feel like you would make the coach's job a lot more. It would definitely turn a lot of that on the head. How do you coach around that many variables is going to change versus how do we find the best version of Baroy calls the 2 comps that he's seeing right now in Overwatch League scrims as poke and rush. But I guess that's what they're calling it there. But essentially, like, it's just do we run poke? Do we run rush? Are we better at this or that? Which route do we take on the map? And all of a sudden it's like, how do we account for somebody banning May?
Yeah,
like,
right.
What do you do? So would you like to see, just like off the wall, hypothetical, Blizzard calls you up. They're like, hey, ChrisTFer,
hello,
we're
Jeff.
split 50-50. You're the tie-breaking vote here on hero bans. do you want it? And do you have an idea on like what you'd like that iteration to be?
What I'll say is I very, very seriously hope they aren't going to drop a game-changing stuff like this 2 weeks before we play our first game. I really hope that.
It sounds more like a mid-season playoff patch, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, sure. I hope they don't do that to us. I mean, it depends. Like, I think that the way the balanced team and everything, the game is clearly in a state where it seems, regardless of the decisions you make on what you nerf and what you buff, it seems like the way Overwatch is going to be played is one comp rules all, and then if you're lucky you have like 2 comps depending on the game mode, right? And I think that if the goal is to have genuine diversity in the hero pool, then the ban system is going to achieve that. And I think from a spectator point of view, then I think it would become better. But I question like the competitiveness of it. I think that one part of Overwatch is the fact that teams like even Goats Meta, like both teams had the exact same 6 heroes to make work, and you could see the difference in how teams are able to make differences with it. And I think if you just kind of start rolling the dice and you don't even know what heroes are available and you just kind of relying on players to figure out win conditions and figure out mechanics on the fly, then maybe the overall level of what you can accomplish goes down. But I dare say any decision they make that helps the spectator aspect of the game is something that's going to keep me in a job for longer. So I'm all for it, I suppose.
Totally. To your point of changing how practice goes, it seems like it would revert kind of back to like a fundamental, like first principle level where you now have to not teach, but kind of instill into the players that like, hey, this hero does X, Y, and Z really well. So when we have that put in front of us, how do we deal with that? We do, your coaching staff does this and somebody else's coaching staff. So it's still to that same, GOATS idea of everybody's given the same tools and it's just how people use them differently. So I think it would be kind of interesting to see
how coach a lot of fundamentals into players.
Yeah.
Okay, we press tab, we see their comp now. The skill would be identifying what your comp win condition versus their win condition is, right? Because if the meta stays the same as what it was on the previous patch, I haven't played this live one, but then you kind of know what every team is going to roll out on the second you go a map, and you all have to worry about is are they going to push left, right? Are they going to do this? And then just executing your game plan. There's very little actually like understanding of how to win that goes into it, because that's all being coached in VOD reviews, and you've played the same matchup over and over and over and over and over. So it's just like identifying their small adaptations. But in Roadlock, you'd need to press tab. Oh, they have all these heroes. I've never played against this comp before, which is something that's going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
How do we figure this out like as soon as humanly possible?
And to your point with like the spectator, viewing experience, this really impacts or has a chance to. I won't say that it will immediately because I have my skeptic's eye on this, especially immediately if and when this gets implemented. But when it does, you have kind of storylines already making themselves, like Philadelphia Fusion, then NYXL in the finals, and the bans come out and you ban Jonak and everybody goes crazy, or Jonak gets to play the Zen and everybody goes crazy, or Pine gets to play McCree. Obviously he's retired, but those are already exciting and can drive an audience. Too soon, pour one out. But
I think you're absolutely right. I think that a small ban phase, and then I'm sure it would make your jobs and the desk at the stuff that you guys all of a sudden have a million more storylines to talk about, right?
Totally.
Like, this ban, let's say, did it impact them? Did they get enough value from this? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of positives to it.
Alternate Overwatch history. What happens if so-and-so doesn't ban this hero? That'd be great.
Yeah. It'll be. I think it'd be very fun. I'm skeptical, especially immediately early on, especially like if this does happen like mid-season. I think coaches in general are gonna have a difficult time shifting gears into working with that. So it's going to be much of the same. Like, okay, I think we want to ban this generally because that fits, it plays into our team style or, what our team does very well. So you're going to see a lot of the same bans. And once you give the system a lot more time to breathe, I think that's when you start to see the more tailored, okay, we ban this against this guy and that against this team.
If they're going to do it, I think they have to do it like today, even halfway through the season. There isn't a long enough break where teams adapt. Right. If you need to do it, Jeff Kaplan needs to ring me up like during this podcast to let me know. It's going to be really hard for us to get the time to figure it all out.
Totally.
Do you think so? Then, because I agree. I don't think that this is. I think this is too big. I want to say this is too big of a change to put in the middle of the season. But we saw what Stage 4 happened
exactly
with 222, which and you've said that this is obviously bigger than that. But I'm also really interested in to see in how this actually looks for non-competitive Overwatch. So not Overwatch League contenders, open division, right? Because. Like, do you have some person in bronze, a team in bronze banning heroes? Or do you make that a Masters Plus? Is that like a Masters Plus thing where you do hero bans? Or is it just an arcade mode? Or, what does that look like? So
I think it would be way worse this season to introduce a drastic change because the number of games that each team played are so widely different over the season. It's not like a hard stop each stage where you say, okay, team has X games. Like there's some, like Atlanta is only playing in February because like the 29th exists this year. Otherwise they wouldn't play in the first month of the season. Like Houston has a month break from March to April. These teams will have very, very different amounts of games. And depending on when you introduce that, I don't even think during the mid-season that each team just has the same amount of games. I'm not 100% sure. By the way, this will also be a mess for us in terms of we already had a hard time reading power levels based on season standings. Now these teams have different amount of games. So we can really not see immediately upon looking at the table who's actually going to be put where, and it also will potentially actually create more excitement towards the end of the season because some teams will have a game more, 2 games less, and they'll catch up, and it's like, okay, if you win the next 3 and the other team only has 1, maybe you can make plans, stuff like this. But generally it's such a hard season to implement a change, also because if you're the Outlaws, you'd love to have Roller come in at the start of March, right? Because you then have 4 weeks to look at every other every other team to just dribble about, figure something out. You're like, copy paste, nice. Thanks for 4 weeks of figuring that out for us, and we take those unnecessarily volatile losses that we would have taken instead. And to be fair, they could have also won games they wouldn't otherwise, but you get the idea, right? It's definitely highly asymmetrical. In how these advantages will work.
On top of that, you've got another fundamental change. ChrisTFer speculating if this is this will shake the groundwork of even practice, on top of traveling and players getting sick and visa issues. And can you guys give these coaches and these staffers a break? This is, let's pray that this isn't the season that this happens. Let's wait till 2021. Extensive testing hopefully is in order here. Hopefully it's just an announcement, but
I imagine they're hyper aware of the importance of this season, right? This is everything that's happened before. You can say, oh well, there wasn't the homestand system. There wasn't. This isn't how Overwatch League was envisioned to be. So they understand that this year is as important as it gets. So if they think that this is a change that's going to do it, then maybe they need to stick it in.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Man, it's going to be really interesting. Again, everything right now is super in the preliminary on.
Of course,
it's that one tweet that just shocks the world kind of thing. Hashtag San Francisco shock fan or whatever I need to put there. Sorry, but it's one of those things where one comment probably just gets blown out of proportion. But this is a rumor that we've heard about for a long time. Yiska kind of alluded to it a few months ago. Yiska's like, I think I have some juice. And we were expecting the juice and
for a while.
Yeah, and that's the big thing I want to say though. For people who are like, Yiska, where's the juice? And blah blah blah. Do you understand why he couldn't just go on the show and be like, oh yeah, hero ban is coming?
To be fair, I shouldn't have teased it. In hindsight, it was a stupid thing to do, but yeah.
You, Yiska, on behalf of everybody. So
cloud chasing.
Wow. God. The extra 9 views we got on the next video that watched just for the juice. We'll send you a free Yiscat sticker
There you go.
There you go.
They'll be fine.
I'm all about making it right.